There was an old story in our family, a legend that said whenever twins were born, one was destined to be a demon. In the past, to be safe, they would simply burn both infants. Thankfully, times had changed and such practices were illegal, which is how my brother and I managed to survive our birth. For the first 3 years of our lives, everything was normal. We were cherubic, lovable children, and our family doted on us. Many of our relatives began to believe the old legend was nothing more than a strange piece of folklore, a peculiar rule written into the family records that everyone had taken too seriously. After all, there hadn't been a recorded set of twins in our entire clan, which spanned several hundred people for over 300 years. Then, on my third birthday, the legend proved true. A large white goose, feeling threatened, pecked at me. In front of everyone, I grabbed its long neck with my small hands and, with a terrifying ferocity, bit directly into its throat. Blood sprayed across my face and clothes. I dragged the goose's limp body home with one hand and proudly presented it to my mother, announcing that we would be having it for dinner. My parents were utterly stunned. The story of the incident spread through our small town like wildfire, and soon, everyone was whispering that I was the demon child. However, because witnesses confirmed that the goose had attacked me first, my parents chose to see it as an act of extreme aggression rather than demonic possession. The clan elders, constrained by modern laws, also concluded that they couldn't execute a child for killing an animal. They simply instructed my parents to watch me closely and let the matter drop. From that day forward, any animal in town that dared to show aggression towards me, I killed viciously. My parents had to pay a significant amount of money to compensate the owners. When I was 5, a group of local kids, led by the town bully, ganged up on me, calling me a demon. I nearly beat their leader to death. If adults hadn't intervened at the last moment, he would have died right there on the playground. After that, I was confined to my room, forbidden from going outside. My brother Alex was my only visitor. He would come in to play with me, and after he started school, he'd recount stories from his day and teach me how to read. He promised that once I was literate, he would introduce me to a world of fascinating novels. Alex shared everything with me. He was my only friend. When I was 7, I heard my mother crying in the yard. I peered through the window and saw that the town bully had severely beaten my brother. Because the bully's family was influential, when my parents reported it to the clan leader, the boy received nothing more than a verbal reprimand. But Alex's right hand was broken, the tendons severed. The doctor who examined him said that even after it healed, his hand would never regain its full dexterity. He would be able to hold a bowl and chopsticks, but anything heavier than 10 pounds would be a struggle. That night, I pried open my window and slipped out into the darkness. By the time my parents received the news and rushed to the scene, the town bully, the boy who had crippled my brother, was dead, and he had died horribly. The bully's parents had beaten me severely in their grief and rage, but I was still alive. When I saw my parents arrive, I smiled and told them, I got revenge for Alex. In that moment, however, neither of them could smile back. The sight of a 7-year-old boy covered in blood and grinning sent a profound chill through everyone present. The police arrived later, and because of my age and the nature of my crime, I was sent to a psychiatric hospital. For 12 years, my brother visited me every single weekend without fail, bringing me good food, teaching me to read, and giving me storybooks. Then, one day, a month and a half passed without a visit from Alex. Instead, my mother came, a woman I hadn't seen even once during my entire incarceration. I almost didn't recognize her. Her face was terrifyingly gaunt. Her eyes were filled with a deep-seated hatred, and her hair was a disheveled mess. She had already completed all the necessary paperwork for my release. Perhaps because I had remained so calm and stable for 12 years, the hospital had agreed to my discharge. My mother didn't say a single word during the entire journey home. I simply watched her in silence. As we stepped into the yard of our house, the strong, pungent smell of medicinal herbs filled the air. My mother finally spoke. "Your dad's paralyzed," she said, her voice flat. "Someone beat him and broke his spine. He's bedridden now." My father was such an honest, gentle man who never caused trouble for anyone. "How could he get beaten up?" I asked, a hint of mockery in my tone. My mother clenched her fists and looked down, avoiding my gaze as she walked into my brother's room. When I followed her inside, I saw a figure lying on the bed, covered by a white sheet. The faint smile on my face vanished. I rushed to the bed and threw back the sheet. I saw Alex's face, pale and tinged with blue, looking peaceful in death. I tore the entire sheet off his body. There were clear ligature marks and scratches around his neck, the kind left by human hands. I unbuttoned his shirt to reveal a torso covered in wounds, some scabbed over, some scarred, and others still fresh, festering and weeping fluid. My mother walked over silently and looked down at her son. She didn't cry, maybe she had no tears left. Through gritted teeth, she said, "If you really are a demon, then please kill everyone who hurt your father and your brother. And if you hate me for being so heartless all those years ago, you can kill me too." "Who was it?" I asked calmly. Through clenched teeth, my mother told me everything. Because I had killed the town bully's son at 7, his family, the Hendersons, had never let go of their grudge. They constantly sought ways to torment our family, even enlisting others in town to join them. My father and brother, being quiet and honest men, became their primary targets. When they were younger, the bullying was limited to beatings, tearing Alex's clothes and forcing him to walk home naked. But it escalated. They began using lit cigarettes to burn his skin and carving humiliating words into his flesh with knives. When the words started to heal, they would drag him back and carve over the same spots again. Initially, the village chief and clan elders would only offer placating words, telling our family to endure it and not cause trouble. Eventually, my father couldn't take it anymore and got into a physical altercation with the Hendersons. Outnumbered and overpowered, my father's spine was broken, leaving him bedridden for the last 2 years. Even after that, the clan elders gave the Hendersons only a light punishment and a small fine. They never involved the police, warning us that if we did, they would enforce the old family rules and banish us from the village, all because we had twins and I was the demon. After that incident, the Hendersons became even more brazen. Alex couldn't stand it anymore and drank pesticide. After hearing the whole story, a wide grin spread across my face. "So I can do whatever I want, right?" I asked. "Yes. I want them dead. All of them dead," my mother screamed, her eyes wild with madness. I smiled and looked at my brother's lifeless body. "Alex, from now on, I'm you. This is going to be so much fun." From that day on, my mother stayed home, preserving Alex's body in a large freezer. I put on his clothes and began to study his life. Alex had 11 distinct cigarette burns on his body. I took my father's cigarettes and burned myself in the exact same spots. One by one, I replicated every single scar on his body, my face completely devoid of expression throughout the process. My mother watched from the side, and for the first time in my memory, she actually smiled. In the past, seeing me do something like this would have made her call me a lunatic, a demon. But this time, her eyes were filled with a strange sense of joy and relief. I stayed home for a few days to allow the wounds to scab over. Then, I got the same haircut as my brother and put on a set of his clothes. The resemblance was so perfect that even my mother couldn't tell us apart. When she saw me, she rushed forward and hugged me tightly. "Alex," she whispered. That was my brother's name. "My name is Leo." "Mom, I'm heading over to the master's place," I said, mimicking my brother's gentle tone. My mother nodded, staring at me in a daze, genuinely believing for a moment that I was her deceased son. I arrived at the master carpenter's workshop, the air thick with the scent of sawdust. The master, Mr. Peterson, was an old carpenter in his 60s, known for having the best skills in town. He was a kind, honest man with a perpetual smile, one of the few people who hadn't treated our family differently because of the twin legend. When he saw me enter, he was visibly surprised. He stopped his work, took off his glasses, and looked me over carefully. "Alex, are you all right? I heard that Dylan gave you trouble again. What a shame. I'm just a craftsman. I don't have any power to help you. If you're not feeling well, take a few more days off. I'll still pay you your full wage." I shook my head and smiled. "I'm fine, master. I want to get back to learning the craft. With that, I took the wood planer he offered and began working on a piece of timber, imitating the way I had seen my brother work. A little while later, the master's other apprentice, Mark, arrived. He was shocked to see me and walked over, clapping me on the shoulder. Alex, I heard Dylan was hassling you again. That guy has really gone too far. Someone ought to teach him a lesson. I just gave a faint smile. It's in the past. Let's just focus on our work. Mark looked like he wanted to say more, but he eventually fell silent and grabbed his tools. However, less than half an hour later, he made an excuse about needing to run an errand and quickly left the workshop. The best piece of land in the village had been developed into a rustic resort, the most profitable business in the area. It belonged to Dylan's family, and he worked there with a few other local youths. Mark snuck into the resort and found Dylan. Dylan, Alex is back at work, he whispered conspiratorially. He looks like he's doing okay. Dylan laughed. Wow, Alex's body is pretty tough. If he's fine after all that, we can really have some fun with him from now on. What if we try branding him? Another guy chimed in. Hey, we could brand the resort's logo right on his face. He'd be a walking advertisement. Great idea. Go get the blacksmith to make it. Once it's ready, we'll go get him, Dylan said, his eyes lighting up. He clapped Mark on the shoulder. Good job. I'll take you out for drinks and with the girls next time. Now go back and keep an eye on Alex for me. Yeah, thanks, Dylan, Mark said, heading back happily, excited at the thought of the beautiful women Dylan associated with. Mark, you seem pretty happy. My voice made him jump. He turned to see me leaning against a tree trunk, holding a carpenter's scraper and sharpening a branch into a stake. Mark's face went pale. He forced a laugh. Alex, what are you doing here? I gave him a strange smile. I can smell the sweet scent of blood. Yours already smells delicious. Mark's eyes widened in shock. Seeing my expression, he stumbled back several steps. What? What do you want? As he turned to run, I threw the scraper in my hand. It sliced into his calf, sending him face first into the dirt. Ah, Alex, you're insane. Do you know what'll happen if you mess with me? I'm with Dylan. You wouldn't dare. Ah! Before he could finish, I plunged the freshly sharpened wooden stake into the palm of his hand and hammered it into the ground with a nearby rock. Ugh! Alex, big brother Alex, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have been a snitch. I'll never do it again, I swear. Please let me go. Ah! With his palm pinned. Every struggle sent searing pain through his body. Soon his other hand was pinned as well. He screamed and begged for mercy as I systematically pinned his limbs to the ground in a spread eagle position, each strike of the rock making him convulse. When I was done, I picked up the last wooden stake, about a foot long, and walked toward his head. Already half dead from the pain, he snapped awake and shook his head in terror. No, no, please, I beg you. I'll never do it again. Please don't kill me. I squatted down beside him and smiled. As long as Alex was alive, I could never come out. His kindness was the only thing that could suppress the evil in my heart. Thank you. Thank you for letting me out of the hospital. Hearing this, Mark's eyes bulged as he stared at me, trembling. You're the demon. I smiled and pointed the wooden stake at his open mouth. A half scream was followed by the dull thud of a rock hitting wood. Half a minute later, it was quiet, except for the cawing of a few crows that had spotted a potential meal. When I returned to the master's workshop, I resumed my work. The master didn't ask any questions. It was my first time doing any real woodworking, but he didn't criticize my clumsy attempts, patiently teaching me the proper techniques. Near noon, the village became noisy with sounds of crying and shouting. Before long, a man ran in, breathless. Mr. Peterson, something happened to your apprentice. He's on the West Mountain Path. Go have a look. The master glanced at me, put down his tools, and waved his hand. Let's go. We arrived at the mountain path, which was already surrounded by a crowd. The wooden stakes had been removed from Mark's body, which was now covered with a straw mat. His mother was wailing beside him. Because in our town, Alex was known for being a good person, the kind who wouldn't fight back even if you hit him. Not a single person suspected me. The old clan elder and the village chief ordered an investigation and instructed the master to build a coffin for Mark immediately. The master and I worked through the night to finish the coffin. In the middle of the night, we used a pushcart to deliver it to Mark's house. We had just placed the coffin in the yard when Mark's mother suddenly slapped Mr. Peterson across the face. "You old bastard! I sent my son to you as an apprentice out of good faith. How could you not watch over him? Why wasn't it you who died, you old goat?" Then, Mark's sister suddenly kicked me and screamed, pointing at my nose, "You demon spawn! When your mother had twins, she should have burned both you and your psycho brother to death. Your whole family should be dead. Why did my brother have to die?" I looked down at the footprint on my stomach, then smiled up at her. "How would you like me to die?" Under my smile, her expression faltered. She half raised her hand as if to strike me, but ultimately let it drop. She stomped her foot and screamed, "Dad! Alex assaulted me!" Just then, Mark's father came over, his eyes blazing with fury. "You little punk! You dare mess with my daughter?" Before he finished his sentence, his hand swung towards my cheek. I didn't dodge. The crisp slap echoed loudly in the quiet night. The master stood by, witnessing everything, but Mark's mother shoved him back. "What, you old bastard? You going to team up with this demon spawn to bully us now?" Mr. Peterson lowered his head and said nothing. Mark's entire family vented their grief and resentment on me, and their behavior made me realize this was how they must have treated my brother all along. I didn't fight back. I just stood there and took it. After a while, they grew tired. Mark's father said to the master, "Leave the kid here. He can work for us." Damn, this kid is weird. He didn't make a sound after all that. The master glanced at me, his eyes holding an unreadable expression, and said softly, "This will be hard on you." With that, he pushed the empty cart and left. "Demon spawn, get over here and move my son's body into the coffin," Mark's father barked. I got up and silently helped carry Mark's body into the coffin, working late into the night. They made me keep watch outside by myself while the family went inside to rest. Late at night, I heard a rustling sound coming from Mark's sister's room. I crept over quietly. Peeking through a gap in the curtains, I saw Dylan climb up to the second-floor window and slip inside. "I've missed you so much," Dylan said, grabbing Mark's sister and eagerly kneading her body. "Dylan, be gentle," she panted. "My brother's dead. You have to help me find the killer." "Silly woman. Isn't it better that your brother is dead? Now there's no one to fight you for the inheritance," Dylan chuckled, starting to remove her clothes. They tangled together against the window. "That demon spawn Alex was acting weird today," she said. "No matter how much we hit him, he didn't make a sound. His smile gave me the creeps." Dylan sneered. "His brother killed my little brother when he was 7. After I'm done, don't clean yourself up. Go seduce Alex. I'll come through the front door to pay my respects and happen to walk in on it. I'll make sure he pays with his life." A vicious glint flashed in her eyes. "Okay." Suddenly, the room erupted in flames, the light illuminating the entire space. Dylan and the sister panicked. The fire spread incredibly fast. "Damn it, it's burning too fast. Someone must have poured diesel. Let's go." Dylan pulled up his pants and rushed to the door only to find it chained shut from the outside. He ran to the window, but it had been barred shut with a wooden plank. "It must be the person who killed Mark. Damn it, what kind of monster did he piss off?" Dylan cursed. His sister was frozen with fear. Dylan grabbed a chair and smashed the window. However, just as he jumped out, I was waiting for him. The wooden club in my hand swung down hard on his head, and he collapsed, knocked out cold. Mark's sister saw me. You're the one who killed my brother. No, please, let me go. It has nothing to do with me." I jumped through the window, holding the blood-stained club, and slowly walked towards her as the fire roared beside us. She pulled open her clothes. "Alex, I know you like me. I'm yours right now. You can do whatever you want. Just please let me go." I walked up to her, grabbed her by the neck, and pulled her close. "A lot of people in the village bullied Alex. That was thanks to you, wasn't it?" She spilled everything from the past, how she had spread his love letter around to make people mock him, and how she enjoyed the attention from the boys who bullied him to impress her. You didn't tell them, but you tacitly approved. I sneered. You even rewarded the ones who hurt him the most. She begged for her life, offering herself to me. You want to please me, huh? I smiled and pulled her clothes back up. A look of joy crossed her face, thinking she was saved. I hugged her and whispered in her ear, By the way, my name is Leo. Alex was my brother. Her eyes filled with terror. The next second, I pushed her into the sea of flames. As she screamed and rolled, her body engulfed in fire, I jumped out of the window. Her parents rushed out and saw the scene. Leo, you set the fire. I'll kill you, her father roared, charging at me. I brought the club down on his head, snapping the wood and sending him to the ground. I continued to smash his head until blood splattered everywhere. His wife collapsed in fear. I looked at her coldly. I'm sending you to a family reunion. I knocked her out, dragged both parents to the coffin in the yard, and stuffed them inside with their son's body. After hammering in the 3 long coffin nails, I could hear muffled pleas from inside. I hammered the nails in tight, sealing every crack. The master's craftsmanship was excellent. It was airtight. I watched as the sounds from within gradually faded. The fire had spread across half the yard, but the houses were far enough apart that it wouldn't spread further. Hearing people approaching, I glanced at Dylan, still unconscious and now surrounded by flames, and walked away from the inferno. When I got home, my mother was sitting in the main hall. She smiled when she saw me and pointed to food on the table. You must be hungry. Eat. I nodded and ate ravenously while she watched. If your brother had no, even a tenth of your ruthlessness, he never would have been bullied like that, she said, talking more to herself than to me. Back then, if I had fought to protect you, if I hadn't let them take you away, maybe they wouldn't have dared to bully our family. In this world, it's always the good people who get bullied. When I finished, she took my bowl. Go rest. You must be tired. I nodded and went into my brother's room to sleep. The next day, an emergency meeting was called at the town's ancestral hall. The village chief sat at the head table with a grave expression. Last night, Mark's family met a tragic end, he announced, his voice trembling. His sister was burned to death, and Mark and his parents were sealed in a coffin and suffocated. We must find the truth. Whispers filled the hall. Some blamed unclean spirits, while others pointed fingers at Dylan, as his affair with Mark's sister was common knowledge. Dylan was rescued, but he has extensive burns, the chief continued, his gaze turning to me. The doctors say he probably won't make it. You were the only one there who survived. Tell us what happened. I calmly recounted the events of the previous night, how the family had beaten me and forced me to stand guard. When the fire started, I explained, I simply ran. You ran? Mr. Henderson, Dylan's father, roared. There was a fire and you just ran? Did you set the fire? I retorted, why should I help people who bully me every day? Dylan led the group that crippled my dad. You expect me to save him? Am I an idiot? My words silenced the room. Mr. Henderson charged at me, but the old clan elder stood up and slammed his staff on the floor. This is the ancestral hall. Show some respect. In the end, with no other leads, the chief ordered me to be locked in a room in the hall for further questioning. As I was being led away, Mr. Henderson whispered to me, whether you're the killer or not, if my son dies, you're going to die with him. After they pushed me into the confinement room, Mr. Henderson spoke through the heavy wooden door. Your little brother killed my youngest son back in the day. I've never forgotten that. This time, if my son dies, you're going down with him. I sneered back. You're just too scared to go after Leo. So you took it out on Alex all these years, right? Watching him get tortured made you feel powerful. He grunted in admission. That's right, and it wasn't just me. The elder was in on it too. Because your family had twins, he was more terrified of that demon child of yours than anyone. He wanted your whole family gone. He let me do what I did, including having your dad crippled, to force your family to leave or die. Now you know how unwelcome you are. He left with a chilling laugh. Not long after, I noticed a carpenter's file being pushed through a small air vent at the back of the room. I hid it in my sleeve. Someone wanted to use me to do their dirty work. By evening, Mr. Henderson burst in, his eyes bloodshot. My son is dead, My last child is dead. I'm taking you with him. Drag him out. I'm going to bury him alive. Two men lunged at me. I whipped the file out and plunged it into one man's throat. He clawed at his neck as blood gushed between his fingers. The other man froze in panic. Mr. Henderson was stunned. You're not Alex? Alex could never be this ruthless. Then, realizing the truth, he screamed, You're Leo. You got it. I smirked and lunged. He was no match for me. My file found his heart. You demon, he gasped. We should have burned you back then. The other man scrambled out the door and ran. The guards outside saw me, covered in blood, and fled in terror. Soon, a large group of men armed with farm tools rushed in. I held up half of Mr. Henderson's heart. His heart was bitter. Everyone screamed. The old clan elder yelled, That's Leo, the demon child. Someone swung an axe at me, but as the blade bit into my shoulder, my file found his throat. I pulled the axe from my own flesh, ignoring the bleeding, and started walking towards Mr. Henderson's house. No one dared get close as I walked right up to the old clan elder. You were the one pulling the strings all along, weren't you? I said, placing my bloody hand on his shoulder. He stood frozen, trembling. Back then, I should have burned you, he stammered. But you've run out of chances now. My hand moved and his head fell. At Mr. Henderson's house, they were preparing for Dylan's funeral. I walked in, leaving a trail of bloody footprints. His wife and daughter were huddled in a corner, pale with fright. I closed the courtyard gate. Leo, the wife said, her voice shaking. It was me and my husband who bullied your family. My 2 sons are dead. If you want to kill someone, kill me. My daughter is innocent. I tilted my head. My name is Leo. At the sound of my real name, her face went white. You're the demon. Yes, I am, I nodded. I was doing just fine in the hospital. You're the ones who let me out. You all call me a demon, so I'll grant your wish. She yelled, No, that's not it, Leo. Listen to me. Your mother's baby died during childbirth. There's something about where you and Alex came from. What does that have to do with you tormenting my brother? I said, thrusting the file into her shoulder. She collapsed. I looked at their eldest daughter, paralyzed with fear by the mourning altar. When I killed your little brother at 7, you were there watching. You know what I am. You shouldn't have made the same mistake. She tried to run but fell. I stood over her and drove the file into her temple. When the village chief arrived with 100 men, they were horrified by the scene. A banner in the hall read, In memory of Alex. The bodies of Mr. Henderson's wife and daughter lay dead before it. The chief shouted, Search the entire village for Leo. 10 of you, come with me to his house. But I had already reached the master's workshop. Mr. Peterson seemed to be waiting for me, smoking his pipe. I put the blood-soaked file on the workbench. Mr. Peterson, here's this back. He put down his pipe. I knew you'd make it out. Congratulations on getting revenge. I sat down beside him. I heard my mother's baby died during childbirth. The midwife was your wife, wasn't she? He became agitated. Don't listen to that woman's nonsense. Hurt me how? I asked, moving closer. By letting me know my brother and I weren't my mother's biological children? He said hastily, Leo, you and Alex were twins the village chief brought from outside. My wife delivered the baby, and the chief had her deliberately switch you. Dylan was your adoptive mother's real son. Why? I asked, stunned. Because at the time, your adoptive father was the top candidate for village chief. If he had twins, not only would he be disqualified, he might have been burned alive. The real culprit is the current village chief. Just as he finished, the workshop door was kicked open. The chief stormed in alone, holding an old shotgun. Old Peterson, I took pity on you back then. You were good at keeping your mouth shut, so I let you live. But it turns out only the dead can be trusted. Your wife knew the most, so I had someone push her into the well. Now, only you two are left. The chief smiled and pulled the trigger. The shotgun blast hit my chest and blood sprayed out. I grabbed the file from the table and threw it, hitting the chief in the stomach. He cried out, dropping the gun. Mr. Peterson suddenly charged, pulling out a scraper and slashing at the chief's neck. "You bastard! I did so much for you, and you killed my wife. I'll kill you!" he screamed, repeatedly cutting him. The chief gritted his teeth, pulled the file from his stomach, and plunged it into Mr. Peterson's side. Mr. Peterson collapsed. The chief looked at me, his throat sliced up, and died with his eyes open. Mr. Peterson's breathing slowly ceased. I struggled to my feet, weak from blood loss. The shot hadn't hit anything vital, but it had taken half my life. I forced myself home. My mother was sitting in the main hall. When she saw me, she rushed over and hugged me, crying, "Leo, you've suffered so much." I leaned on her. "Mom, this time, you won't send me away again, will you?" "No, never," she sobbed, holding me tight. "Mom was wrong before. You and Alex are both my good sons." I smiled and slowly closed my eyes. She sobbed for a few moments, then hoisted me onto a stool, my body slumped over the table. "Are you satisfied now?" she said to the empty room. She picked up a cup of tea from the table and drank it in one gulp. From the shadows, dozens of men emerged, holding pitchforks and blades. Seeing me dead, they let out a collective sigh of relief. Mom leaned over my shoulder. "You wanted to burn our family alive, didn't you? Well, now you can. Burn us all together." As she spoke, black blood trickled from her nose and mouth. Afterward, the men of the village carried our family to the back of the mountain and set us on fire. Only then, with the demon finally gone, could they truly breathe a sigh of relief.